right. All right. And it appears the stream is on. All right, well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Christian from Ericsson Films, and today I'm going to be discussing the newest camera from Panasonic, the GH5S. In this live stream slash kind of video sort of setup, I'm trying a new type of video, new format, a live stream, but not the super casual, low quality kind you're kind of used to seeing on here. This is serious. So go ahead, drop in, listen to questions, ask questions if you're live for it, and listen to my 2 cents about the GH5S and I think the inevitable demise of Canon's DSLR hybrids, which a lot of people have been talking about for a long time, but to me this really represents the nail in the coffin. So I'm just going to take it that most of you are already familiar with the GH5S because I'm far from the first channel to be covering this camera. But to me, this really represents a kind of turning point in the quality you're going to be getting from mirrorless cameras. And you could say the GH5 already represented that, and I'd agree with you. But the difference here is the GH5S has everything good about the GH5 and just makes it better. The one feature people might argue about that actually is worse is the lack of in-body image stabilization. And yes, there is merit to that argument, but I was listening to an interview that one of the representatives, sorry about the pop there, one of the representatives did from Panasonic, and there was an argument about that interference with the image caused by a feature like in-body image stabilization, which really is a great consumer-friendly feature, but my feeling is this camera is marketed more towards people who are going to be using this in a film setting, narrative setting, having this on a rig, a tripod, not so much a run and gun camera. And that, to me, is essentially where this camera stands. This is a camera that's going to let you basically use this to make your films in an extremely high quality. And that means that you're not going to need something like a C200 or even an EVA1. You're going to be totally fine with something like this. And a lot of that has to do with, I'm just looking here at the Verge's article again to remind me of the specs. This camera has incredible low light sensitivity in the hands-on that Engadget did when they're comparing the saturation and contrast in challenging conditions. The GH5S, to quote here, handily bested Sony's top low light performer, the A7S II. And that, if nothing else, should show you the kind of quality you're getting from this camera. You are going to be getting, in some cases, in perhaps many cases, better low light than the A7S II from a micro 4/3 camera. You need to think about that for a second, you guys. That is incredible. And a lot of that has to do with something that they're putting in here known as dual native ISO. And for those of you who don't completely understand that, native ISO is the point in a camera where you have the ISO set that you're going to have the least noise and the most optimal image, that essentially you're going to be able to get the cleanest image out of the camera. On this camera, the base native ISO, checking specs here again, is, I think, 400, but I'm going to double check. Excuse me. 400. I'm going to get 400. And I believe that the second dual native ISO is, sorry, this Verge article is just not giving me the kind of information that I wanted. I'm going to double check this here. Sorry about my mechanical keyboard making all this noise. Just want to double check so I don't give you guys the wrong information. You're going to be getting dual ISO at, I think, 400 is the first. They don't even want to tell me. Everyone just wants to go on about how it can go up to 51,200. That's okay. Here we go. The dual native ISO is 400. That's where you're going to have the minimal amount of noise, the best image, and 2,500. I knew that from the top of my head, but I didn't want to say if it was the wrong number. 2,500 is the other dual native ISO, meaning you hit 2,500 when you're going up an ISO, and the image cleans itself up again, and you're back to that complete low noise image you got at 400. That is incredible. And I know I probably sound like I'm beating a dead horse here on points that were already made with the A7S years ago. But the difference here, you guys, is this is a 10-bit camera. The A7S and the A7S II are not, and I'm guessing the A7S III might not be as well. And I personally believe that Sony's sort of rise to popularity and, in a sense, dominance over the mirrorless video market, I think that those days are over. I think the easiest way to tell is their lack of inclusion of 10-bit in the A7R III. That being an 8-bit camera, I think, was a huge mistake. And a lot of people will argue, oh, it doesn't really matter, and for a lot of purposes it doesn't. That's true. I mean, you guys are listening to a guy who still shoots on a T2i, but that, my friends, is on a principle that I have not bought a new camera until I found one that actually impresses me to the point where I don't feel like I'm settling, and I also don't want to spend 10 grand. Because right now, the next camera up from what I have, at least before this announcement, that really impressed me was the Canon C200. The Canon C200, though, rigged out and everything, you're looking at 8 grand, which is to be fair, is a very good price for a 12-bit camera that shoots a form of RAW, but as someone who's going to be starting college next year, just isn't viable for me. So that is where this camera, the GH5S, comes in. And I'm thinking that if all goes well, I will end up getting this camera. And I'll get more into that now. So, as I mentioned earlier, and if you guys are watching right now, this is live, so go ahead and ask me any questions, leave anything in the chat. I am here. I'm streaming live. And this video is going to be available for backplay. I'm nearly positive I'm going to leave it up. So, there you go. What really attracts me about this camera is the fact that the 10-bit is a big deal. But the other point that I was thinking of that I kind of got off track here is the color science. That to me has always been the most important thing about a camera. And I saw an image from this guy's channel, if you guys don't know about him, Three Blind Men and an Elephant, Hugh Brownstone, made the GH5 series. I'm trying to remember what it's called now. Sorry for not streaming my desktop, guys. My OBS is acting up a lot. So I was only able to stream an image, unfortunately. Which, you know, what are you going to do, I guess. But I'm just typing really quick, remembering the name of that series. The Three Blind Men and an Elephant is the name of his channel, Hugh Brownstone. He made a series called The GH5 Has Me Thinking, which was a very well-received series, which he made before the GH5 came out, essentially detailing what he wanted with the camera. And, you know, he's a very good guy, respectable journalist, very good channel. But anyway, he was doing an interview with Panasonic representative, with Sean Robinson was the name I was trying to think of earlier. He did an interview with Sean Robinson. And in the interview, you learn at some point in the interview that the camera filming Sean Robinson is a GH5S. And when I saw that image and the color and the skin tone, again, guys, stuff like this is completely subjective, so I understand if it looks different to you and you don't like it, but I personally love the image, and that's coming from someone, you guys, who's always stayed away from Sony and Panasonic because of the color science. That is why I'm finally thinking that I'm moving to Panasonic, because I think they finally nailed it. I think they finally nailed the color. They finally got to the point where the color looks to me, in that image anyway, nearly as good as Canon. When you're shooting, I'm not sure if this example, I don't think he's shooting in Vlog L, but if you are shooting in Vlog L and you're grading, it's just the color coming out of that camera is incredible. I would not have expected that. And that to me is the biggest reason, because it's 10-bit and it's great color. So just moving on to the questions now, I'm going to get back to the other points eventually. Mr. Robbie Jr. asks, comments anyway, just imagine it with a Metabone speed booster. That is a exciting thing to think about. The increased perceived sensor size you get with that would create a really amazing image on a fairly low-cost camera. That is going to be awesome. Asif Khan, GH5, compare with any brand, it will appear in good numbers through video segment. That is right, my friend. You're essentially now getting pro video features in a slightly upper mid to high tier DSLR mirrorless price range. You're getting features that have never before been on a mirrorless camera. Like the GH5 had already set the bar, and then Panasonic goes and sets it even higher. As if, okay, so let's talk about the problems for a second. You're not getting amazing autofocus, and that is sad. I think that Canon with dual pixel autofocus has really done some amazing things, and I think, sorry, taking a drink really quick, guys. My water here. What they've done is really amazing. Sony and Canon, both of their autofocusing, and Panasonic has been behind. They've been behind. It's hard to argue. They have not made autofocus as good as the other two brands. And that's sad. But it's not a deal breaker in my mind. What is a deal breaker to me is Sony's, sorry if I'm talking to any Sony fans here, in my opinion, awful color science. This is totally subjective though. I understand a lot of people enjoy their colors. I just don't. To me, they're not good. And then Canon, while they do have the best color science still, they don't innovate anymore. They're not making things better that don't cost above $7 or $8 grand. I mean, some people could argue, yeah, the C200 did bring the price down a lot for quality, and that is true. But that's not my price range, you guys. If I was essentially a small video production company, then yeah, I'd totally... Again, my apologies for the pop there. I would buy the C200, but it's not in my price range. D says, hey, what's up, D? I know that's not your name, but it's what your channel's calling yourself. So, hello, D. Or maybe it is, who knows. But anyway, we're seeing quality in this Panasonic camera at this price range that Canon just wouldn't do. Canon wouldn't do that because they don't want to cannibalize, at least they think they'd cannibalize their Cine cameras. Do I find the Panasonics to lean towards orange for skin tones especially? I used to think that. I always used to think that, and that's why I didn't like them. But as I was saying earlier in the stream, Hugh Brownstone, 3 Blind Men and an Elephant, does an interview, or he's just done an interview, I think, was it earlier yesterday, one of these 2 days, yesterday anyway, where he's with Sean Robinson from Panasonic, interviewing the guy, and you find out in the interview he's filming on a GH5S, and the image, I think it's on a 42.5 Nocticron, the sort of semi-telephoto shot of Sean just, sitting there in the interview looks amazing. The skin tones look great. And that was the first time I've ever felt that way looking at a Panasonic camera. And so, yeah, I do think they did used to lean towards orange, but I think that now they're starting to nail it. And that was all that was left in my mind, you guys. The color, that was the one thing they were still messing up on. I think it got a lot better with the GH5. And just from my initial impressions, this could be wrong. I think they've been better with the GH5S. I don't have a GH5. I would love to review one. And I actually think the GH5 has pretty excellent color as well. And I've always actually considered GH5 as a potential camera that I would invest in. But the GH5S is essentially putting me to the point now where this is the next, when I have the money, this is the camera I'm going to get. And I'm really happy with what they're doing here. You know, lowering the megapixel count, I think, was a great move to 10 megapixels, increasing the pixel size of those megapixels. And then again, you're getting 10-bit up to 400 megabits per second, 422 color space. And I could be wrong here, but I believe there's a form of HDR video as well. No, yeah, there is a form of HDR video. I'm trying to remember if it's internal or external. Getting 14-bit raw files, in photo mode, and you're getting this all for $2,500, which is amazing. Like, you guys can just tell here that Panasonic is really innovating, something Canon hasn't done with this market anyway. I would argue the last time they did something in this market that was this good was like the 5D Mark III. I mean, a lot of people really love the 1DX Mark II, and I mean, it's a great image. I'm not gonna lie. I see that image and I like it. I love the color. I love the skin tones. I just love that really natural, filmic, organic Canon look. But it's just not priced correctly as a video camera. As a photo camera, I understand why it's that expensive. That's their top tier, but they're not giving you those kind of features in lower priced cameras. And Panasonic is. Not to mention the 1DX Mark II, while it does offer 422 color, it's still 8-bit. It's still 8-bit, you guys. This camera you're getting here, this GH5S, is 10-bit. You're going to get a lot of room to stretch the color there in grading. I like my GH5. I guess D has a GH5. I don't even have one. That's awesome. To be honest, from what I read, I won't be changing to the S. No IBIS. Obviously, nice low light. I like my subjects, and I don't have the need to shoot at night. GH5 is every day. That is totally true, D. And I don't have a GH5. And if I did, I also would not want to upgrade to this camera because it's a very incremental improvement. This isn't even like an S equivalent in the iPhone categories, which they seem discontinued, but that's another story. This is a very minor upgrade. But for someone like me who's on the fence about buying a GH5 at all, this was enough to convince me. But yeah, if you already have a GH5, then totally amazing camera. That's really cool. And the IBIS point is a really good point. Depending on what kind of shooter you are, IBIS really can come in handy. For me, personally, it wouldn't be as big a deal because I shoot almost exclusively on tripods and stuff like that. But for walking around handheld, there's nothing that beats that Panasonic IBIS as far as I know for something that's an internal system. I don't think there is anything that beats it. And that's really cool you have one. And I'd love to hear your experience because I've heard a lot of great things about one. I've seen them. I don't have one. I'm still using Canon after all this time. And, part of that is, you guys, if you're following this channel, I have not been particularly involved in this industry in a while. Like, I took a long break. There was 6 months almost where I'm just gone. And that was me sort of, I guess you could say, just sort of living my life as a teenager and trying to have fun. And, I did, but I realized I was missing out not being here anymore and not having building a community online, which I think is a really great thing that you can't do and you couldn't do in the past, I mean. So that's why I'm back, but that's another story. 422 in the GH5, also low light, get a quicker lens. Yeah, that's true, D. You could just get a quicker lens. And the reason I'm really attracted to GH5S it's more to do with the V-Log-L being inside and the dual native ISO, stuff like that. Just stuff that, as somebody who doesn't have one, is really enticing, but like, you know, you already have one, so this stuff really, like you said, you have get a faster lens. Yeah, these are negligible differences. And Canon's awesome for skin tones. Yes, I agree. I've always thought they're the best, and they probably still are the best. I think, but that was my point though. This is subjective, of course, but seeing that video from Three Blind Men and an Elephant, Hugh Brownstone, you guys should check it out. In the interview, the shots of Sean Robinson, I think the skin tones look really great. I think it's a little sharpened in that video, which I don't like. But I think the Panasonic skin tones have gotten a long way. I mean, especially compared to Sony skin tones, which don't even get me started on that. And yeah, I would like both too, D. If we had a S for night, the 5 for day, that would be really cool to have them both. I mean, I would be happy to have any of those cameras at this point. I mean, you guys, my current camera is still the T2i, which is like a $200 camera at this point. So it's got to show you guys where I'm coming from. I go above like ISO 800, and it's just like so noisy you don't want to use anymore. But I'm still happy with the Canon image, and I'm not in any position right now to be spending a ton of money. So yeah, that's where I see a lot of this camera really being marketed less towards the guerrilla shooter and more towards the essentially film set type of DP kind of individual. Yeah, I'm just trying to read up some of the stuff again that I was remembering how much I liked. There was just a sense of this camera that, you know, they sort of refined a bit. You know, they're refining some of the things that were problematic with the GH5, which was very little, to be clear. The GH5 was an amazing camera and is an amazing camera. I think people took the whole autofocus situation way out of control. Like, most cameras don't really have that great autofocus, and as far as I'm concerned, they had to cut somewhere to make it 2000, and maybe that was the autofocus. And so what? I mean, you don't hear people like grabbing an Alexa and being, oh, the autofocus sucks, you know, like it. And I understand, like, there's an argument, it's a guerrilla camera, and you know, I hear those people, and I would wish that they'd put, you know, actual, you know, phase detect. So that's the word I'm looking for. Phase detect autofocus in the GH5S. It doesn't look like they're doing that. And that is okay. Again, you're not talking about a mega expensive camera here. The only respectable Canon camera, in my mind, that has that, in like a viable video 4K solution anyway, is the 1DX Mark II, and that's like $6 grand, $5-6 grand. So it's not a comparison worth making. And then yeah, you can make the argument that Sony's have good autofocus. Yes, that's true. But again, I'll always argue my personal opinion that Sony skin tones are not good. And I understand there are people who make them work. If you're shooting in like an S-Log 2, you can make them work. You can make any camera with that much dynamic range skin tones work if you're working hard. But, and I agree, I'm glad that Dee brought this up as well. The skin tones that come right out of Canon cameras are always amazing. They're always amazing. And I think Panasonic might be there too. And once they are, to go back to the title of this video, the GH5S and the inevitable end of Canon's hybrid prowess, I think that they're done. If this is good enough, then they're done. No one's going to want to buy a Canon DSLR anymore to shoot video. At least nobody who cares so much about the image. You're always going to get the Casey Neistat wannabe vloggers who are still going to buy ADDs. D-Road, I do miss autofocus on a gimbal, but there is workarounds. Basically, if Panasonic put both IBIS, low light, and fixed the autofocus, they would have killed the 5 and 6. And that is true. But let me think here for a second. What are you referring to as a 5 and 6? You'll need to specify that for me, because I'm not following that right there. But I do understand that you agreed. The autofocus, the gimbal helps. Or sorry, there are workarounds is what I meant to say. And if they were low light and fixed, and yeah, those are really the only issues with the camera, though. and I'm sure, yeah, D is someone who actually owns a camera. I don't. He has a lot more experience here than I do. GH5 and future GH6. Yes. Yes, and the thing is, Panasonic probably could do that, but this may sound kind of cynical, but I just don't think that they would, because then they'd cannibalize their other camera sales. But who knows? They've surprised me a lot, especially the GH5S. Mr. Robbins Jr. asks, what do I hate about the Sony colors? Well, see, this is the thing. Sony color in general, camera color especially, is super subjective. So what might look amazing to one person might look terrible to another, and that's just me personally. The colors I see out of Canon strike me as really pleasant. They kind of give me this almost filmic kind of character. I mean, I would describe the character as kind of filmic. It kind of makes me think of... Sorry about the noise in the background, guys. I'm not using a dynamic mic, which I should get one eventually for streaming, but the color on a Canon camera always strikes me as really authentic. Even though it's not. Canon cameras are not authentic color, but they give you this sort of feeling they are. Like, you know, it feels like, almost to me, feels like you're in the movies and you're watching a dramatic film, but also they have this, they can be really warm and really nice, and I don't know, they're emotional to me. The colors invoke emotion. I don't get that out of a Sony. And to me, a Sony colors, they remind me of really sterile corporate video and almost broadcast color. They almost remind me of broadcast color, even S-Log, which is ironic considering how flat it is, but graded S-Log, if it's not graded by someone really good, reminds me of like broadcast footage. But again, it's totally subjective. I get a lot of people love Sony color, and that's awesome. I wish I did, because then I would have moved to Sony a long time ago. Its business makes sense, and yeah, it does. I mean, that's the way I'm going, guys. That's what I'm hoping to go into eventually, is business. And I get why companies do things that they do. If these companies were to throw all their eggs in one basket and make some mega camera that had all the features and the lowest price, they would probably go bankrupt or something, or just mess up the market in a way that nobody could predict. And you know, it wouldn't be good for them. At least they wouldn't think it would be. And to be honest, I don't know enough about business to explain something like that. And I'm just, to be clear, I'm really happy with the GH5S and the GH5. And there's not more I could really want. And the greens, I'm guessing, D, you're talking about the greens on the Sony being problematic. Yeah, well, see, the thing is that greens on Canon are incredible, and I think almost everybody agrees with me on this. That's why I love Canon. Is one of the reasons besides skin tones, the greens, the grass, the trees. It's just amazing. The color is just incredible. Yeah, like that. Those greens, like, this is what I mean. This is a very kind of subjective, almost potentially. What's the word? People might take it as pretentious, but in arguments about color, I'm sorry, but you're going there, you're going there. I'm going there. Color is something that's important to me, and it's actually the most important thing to me. And the reason I've stayed with Canon this long, and I think Canon greens are amazing, and I don't like Sony greens. I'm just trying to like look at some images again, trying to remind myself, because it's been so long since I've been heavily involved in this industry. I say industries and running a YouTube channel, guys. I'm not actually working for one of these companies. But yeah, I just don't like, they just look fake to me. Like, they just don't look real. Sometimes they look like really gray. That's what I describe them often as like gray looking. Just not, I mean, and that's not, actually I don't think that's a problem with the images, because the images are in RAW. You can manipulate them really well, but the video, I'm talking about video here. I don't think it's as much a problem when you're dealing with the photos. But yeah, the Sony skin tones, Sony color, I just don't like it. But I don't want you guys to agree with me unless you really do. You know, I'd hate to be one of those people who's like, I have the ultimate opinion on camera color science and everyone else is dumb. Like, those are really stupid arguments. And color science is extremely subjective. So like the color science you like, and stand by it, and buy that camera, because a lot of other people probably like the same thing you do. A lot of people probably see the color in my videos and they think it's disgusting. And there actually are some arguments about why it might be, given Canon's low sort of bit rate 8-bit codec that I've been dealing with for a long time, which, hard to complain when you're using a $250 camera. But I'd like to see what I could do with a better computer and better color stuff color stuff, color grading suites. I actually already have the Premiere Pro to do it, just my computer won't run it that well. My computer doesn't really run Premiere Pro that well, part of why I don't make videos that much. But yeah, there's a lot of, it's very complicated and it's very subjective. So like the color science you like. But yeah, I think that we always want more stuff. Wasn't sure what context you meant that in. If you meant like, can you clarify that for me, D? Sorry, sometimes I'm a little hard for me to pick up cues in these streams. I hear the YouTubers that do them long enough, they start getting better at it. But yeah, so I had the G3 for a long time. GH3 camera. Heard that was a good one. If that's what you're talking about. I had never had any experience with it. Panasonic. Is it G3 itself into camera? Let me check. I'm sure it is. I'm just not familiar with it. Yeah, Panasonic. That's cool. Like Panasonic's, they've not even the H, just the G3. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing it here. Panasonic Lumix DMC G3 digital mirrorless interchangeable lens camera. Cool looking thing. And I've always known that people who've used Panasonics have liked them for a long time. And just like Canon's always been, I don't know what it is with Canon. Like, aside from the color, which as I've said before is very important, they just really don't have a lot of other stuff going for them at this point. And they're just not, I do think they're eventually, you're going to see less people using them. And you already are. Like for professional video work, in the budgets of people who can't afford $8,000 cameras, you're going to see less and less people using Canon. I think that's for the best, because Canon needs to realize this is not a great approach. They won't even make good mirrorless cameras. I still can't believe that, but shows me a lot. Shows me lots of work. It shot me lots of work. That's cool. So are you actually in a pro? D, are you in the industry? Because that or hobbyist? Because me personally, I'm not really in. It's $300 with a lens. That is cool. That's cheap. Because I'm not really in any of this. The only industry I'm part of is the voiceover industry. As in, I'm like a voiceover artist. And then some say, okay, well that's cool. That's really cool, man. And or I'm assuming you're a guy. God, see, always got to be careful in these YouTube live streams. Don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but yeah, I mean that's cool. I have mixed feelings about wanting to do that at some point in my life. Maybe as a hobby at least, or on the side. And voice actor, yes. Tall Tale wrote that. That is my job, fella. Okay, good. Thanks, D. I didn't want to assume anyone's gender on here, but Telltale, voice actor, yes, that is my job. I'm more like a voiceover artist. I started as wanting to be a voice actor, and I guess I've done audiobooks, which is technically a form of acting, but yeah, I'm more like narration. That's how I make my bulk of my money, not YouTube. But narration, you guys can probably tell, I don't have enough subscribers for this thing to keep me afloat. And I still live at home, guys. I'm a senior in high school. So it's not like my full-time gig. But that's cool, though, D. I'd love to hear some experiences of yours working in the industry. And I'm really happy to hear that people watch my channel who sounds like have a lot more experience than I do, because I'm 18. I haven't been around all that long. I don't know the history, any of this stuff. But yeah, I just, thanks for being part of the channel, man. Really happy to have you on here. And everyone else watching, thanks for being part of the live stream. Appreciate it. Mr. Robbie Jr. still asks, I meant to say still here, thankfully, and asks, Mr. Robbie Jr. says, what lens will you use with the GH5S? If I got it, 42.5 Nocticron. Let me check again how much it costs. I'm talking pretty far in the future, guys, because that's a major amount of money that I don't really have at the moment. 42.5 Nocticron is $1,400, so I'd probably start with the 25. millimeter, which is cheaper, and I think about 150. Yeah, and this is kind of far off in the future, me buying this stuff, because I don't have the money for it yet. But I'd really, and probably I'm gonna buy lights first, guys. If you haven't noticed, all the lights in my videos right now are natural lighting. And I'd like to get some more lights before that, probably aperture lights, which are expensive. Mr. Robert Jr. asked, would I buy Metabones for it? Probably not. I don't own that many Canon lenses. And I just don't, I'm not into the whole adapter thing, not because I have anything against it, because I haven't used it yet. And maybe eventually, like if I was to own a GH5S for a while, I'd probably eventually get one for that added depth, or at least a Metabone speed booster, yeah, for that added depth of field. But yeah, and again, if you're watching the stream right now, guys, sorry I keep messing up a bit on my talking. I just started school again. After like 5 weeks off. Because just to put it generally, I live in the area affected by the Thomas Fire, which, if you haven't heard about, was the largest fire, actually, I think, the largest fire in California's history. I lived in an area affected by it. Fortunately, my home is fine, thankfully. But yeah, so that was why school was canceled for a long time. So I'm finally back at school, and it's been a bit of a surprise to be back, a bit of a shock to the body. 12 to 35 is always a good all-around lens for the Panasonics. I've heard about that, D. I heard those are good lenses. Especially because you're getting a little bit of zoom, and that's doubling to a 24 to 70 if I'm correct, on a full frame equivalent, 24 to 70, because of how Micro Four Thirds work, which is really cool. Really great focal length. It starts, yeah, it's at 2.8. Yeah, I remember the 12 to 35. Yeah, that's a consistent 2.8, isn't it? The 12 to 35. Yeah, then that's cool, and that's really, it's great that you're getting that kind of quality on Micro Four Thirds these days. And then yeah, I'm just really excited about this camera coming out, and I guess you can already get it now, which is great. If I'm in contact with any brands or watching this, I would certainly love one to, you know, review or anything like that, but not quite there yet with my channel. I am getting items to review though, guys. You haven't noticed, I am getting items sent to me, but not of that caliber yet. So that's part of building this project again, part of being back here for 2018, part of Erickson Films in the future, and me staying here and working harder on this channel and not letting it drift away as it did in those 6 months that I was hardly involved. Which I regret. But my channel did double in size at the time. So now we're at almost 3K, which, if I remember correctly, I was not anywhere near that recently. As in, before I stopped making videos, it was way lower than that. And then just, I'm kind of starting to get to near the end of the stream, I'm just going to go over some of the video ideas that I have right now, you guys, just to get you excited. Well, first, sound like I'm stuttering. I don't even stutter. Mr. Robert Jr., how much do you make as a voice actor? It depends. It's not like I don't put a lot of time into it, to be honest. I mean, I've made thousands over time, if that gives you any perspective. Thousands of dollars, you know, many thousands. But I'm not like making a living on it by any means, but I'm making money that is enough to be pretty similar to if I was working some type of probably part-time 15-hour a week, 10-hour a week kind of low-wage job. Not a lot of money, really, but I know that if I was to, you know, not be in school and put in a lot of time into it, I'd be able to make a lot of money, because there's times where I can make you know, I can essentially I can get this rate now where I can make about $10 in 10 minutes, and that can keep going up. So like that sounds like nothing, but then, you know, you do that a lot, and it can really be a lot in like one day, and that can be close to 50 an hour if the work keeps coming. 60 an hour occasionally. But that's not something I've been doing a ton of recently, and I'm trying to get back into it because I don't know, I just wasn't feeling a lot of passion for it for a while. But then I got back into it and I realized how much I loved it and why I started with it in the beginning. And, you know, if we're just talking about, it does sound like a lot, Tall Tale, it does. It's just that I haven't put in that kind of time. Meaning that if I did put in a lot more time, I would make that much, but that much doesn't happen that often. Meaning that right now I'm not making that much. Right now I'm not making a whole lot. I mean, I'm only making in the, you know, hundreds a month, not like the thousands. Which, you know, if you don't have a job, that definitely does probably sound like a lot of money. And it's cool, like it is. But you know, if you're an adult and you have a job, it's not as much as a job right now. But I hope that, you know, as time goes on, I become more disciplined, more educated in this kind of thing. I could eventually turn something like this into a career where I'm, you know, paying the bills. That would be a goal. Because I really do love doing it. And audio really is my real passion. I mean, video is as well, but audio is really always what it's been about for me. Like, I hope this stream sounds good. Like, let me know if the stream sounds good. Like, I think it does. Like, I'm using my MXL 990, which isn't a super expensive mic, but I was going all my Audient ID14, which is a $300 interface that I bought because I love audio and for my voiceover career, slightly in air quotes, but so yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, but I don't put in as much time into it as I'd like, so yeah. And D says it sounds very clear. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's the purpose. The acoustics in this room are not perfect. It's only slightly treated. My actual recording space where I do my real voiceovers is it's actually over in this closet that I converted into a booth, which I can't show you right now because all my cameras are malfunctioning for some reason on this. I really need a new computer, guys. I'm still using this Lenovo Y40, which is 4 years old. But yeah, so this is just me using this condenser mic in an untreated room, slightly treated. Sorry, I take it back. There's some treatment on the walls, and there's some in the ceiling corners, some bass traps. And thank you, yeah, for D saying it sounds clear, and Mr. Robert Jr. saying it sounds nice. I appreciate that, you guys. I put a lot of effort into the audio on this channel. Because to me, that's the most important thing. Clear sound. I could be okay with bad video if I had good sound. If I'm watching someone else's stuff anyway. Have I used a Zoom H mic? No. I almost got one the other day. I almost bought one, but I didn't. But I think they're really cool, and I'd love to get my hands on one. And as I'm coming to wrap this thing up here, let me go over some of the videos that I have planned for the future that I have written down on a list that I'm planning to make. So first off is I'm making a sort of sequel, and feel free to comment, you guys, what you think of this stuff, if it's a good idea, bad idea, or if you have any other ideas. Sort of a sequel to Why an Audiophile Loves AirPods, probably my most well-received video of the last 6 months. And the video is going to be called Why an Audiophile Loves AirPods 8 months later. And that's essentially me kind of going over a lot of what I think now after having these things for 8 months and having also upgraded a lot of my audio equipment, which was something that a lot of people gave me grief for at the time. Like, you only have M20Xs, those aren't even good. And like, hey guys, now I have M50Xs. And if you're arguing with me that those are bad, then okay, wow, you're really in an elite audiophile club there. Those are my daily drivers now, and I still love the AirPods. So spoiler, I still love the AirPods. I've learned their limitations, though. And I'm just going to be kind of going over some of my thoughts on them after having them this long. Because when I made that initial video, I'd only had them for like a month. Or even less, maybe. But yeah, and this is kind of another idea I had was when I made why I switched to iOS video 4 months later, and that did pretty well. Got a fair amount of attention. So I think people in general on my channel seem to like the sequel idea videos. But yeah, any of you still here listening to the stream, let me know what you think of that. Or if you're even interested in my headphone videos at all, because I know some people aren't, and that's fine. I have different niches on my channel who watch different types of videos. And then, on a similar note, I'm going to be making a review of the ATH M50Xs in 2018. So yeah, the M50Xs in 2018, daily drivers I have right now, got them some of my Christmas money. They're a extremely well-respected audiophile grade pair of headphones that are also perfect for editing, which is what I'm using them mainly for. And they're famous. People anywhere from, I believe Justin Vernon from Bon Iver wears them when he's performing, to gamers putting mod mics on them. So yeah, that's another video idea. And then just to stop here for a minute, D wrote, everyone always has something to say no matter what we do. Can't please everyone. What do you do what you think works? Thank you, D. That is encouraging. Because you're right, sometimes you gotta do stuff just even if not everybody likes it, and that's important, so thank you. Another gadget I received during this holiday season was the Amazon Echo Dot. And I'm thinking about making a review of it, because it's cool. It's not extremely impressive to me, but I like the concept, and I do think the voice on it is really great, really futuristic sounding. Makes me feel like I'm in Halo or something, like with an AI. I wonder if they made a Microsoft Cortana one yet, then I'll really be there. And then my brother actually got a Manfrotto Be Free Live tripod, which is a pretty big brand. Tripods is an understatement. I'm joking. That is the biggest brand in video tripods in the at least sort of prosumer to semi-pro and also professional sort of tripod arena. Manfrotto Be Free Live, very popular tripod, and I'm going to be making a review of it, as well as a review of my current tripod, which I've had for over a year now, the Benro S4. So look forward to those reviews of those two tripods. If you're at all interested in getting a new tripod, they're both highly recommended. And D wrote, yeah, use the big brand names in your titles. It'll bring people over. Thanks, D. Yeah, and I think that that's a good idea. Yeah. A tripod would be cool. Is it for video? Yes, both tripods are for video. They're both video-centric tripods with smooth panning heads and high-quality tilt features. And both tripods I'd recommend for people starting YouTube channels or going into video production. So yeah, they're video tripods. And then yeah, on another note, if anyone remembers, being on this channel, I don't know if any of you here were that long ago, I used to make gaming videos. And I started playing games a bit again. I've been playing Halo again, which has been really fun. I love Halo, and I hadn't played it in years, but I rediscovered my love for a game over the holiday season at home, which was great. And I recommend all of you, if you have something that you used to love that you just don't really think about anymore or spend time doing anything with, whether it be a hobby or an area of interest, just try looking at it again. Maybe you'll rediscover that love. Mr. Robert Jr. wrote, I've been Halo myself. Playing Halo myself, I'm assuming. That's awesome, man. I love Halo, and I forgot how much I loved it, and my brother and I have been actually going through Halo 3 Legendary together. Halo 3, that's easy, sorry. Halo 2 Legendary together, which is hard. Trying to beat that game. Gravemind still has us stuck. Just too long, not enough hours in the day to beat that. Because if anyone remembers, Halo 2 Legendary, not balanced at all, but still really fun. But yeah, so that, thinking if I get a new computer anyway, there may be a second channel for gaming and game streams, but this will remain the main focus because this is really what I'm about these days. Technology, cameras, headphones, microphones, video production, and just interacting with an online community and building a educational community online. And thank you to everyone who's been part of the stream today. Thank you to D. Thank you to Mr. Robbie Jr. Thank you to, I think I'm going to say your name right, Talltale. There, however you say your name, tell me if I'm wrong. And then Asif Khan, who was here a lot earlier. Thank you guys all for making this live stream the great stream that it was. And D writes, just upload what interests you and see what isn't out there and own it. Thank you, D. Another good piece of advice. I will certainly take that into consideration when making my new videos, which expect a good amount of soon, everybody. So, as I come to the end of the stream here, I hope we've all learned a little something about the GH5S, my opinions about the inevitable end of Canon's hybrid prowess, and the ever-changing scope of the mirrorless / DSLR hybrid video market, and just multimedia in general. So, until next time, everybody, This has been Christian from Erickson Films, signing out.